Welcome back. Seeing as it's the first week of March, I thought we'd run through part 4 of Smart Season Planning. Quick winter recap, discuss the winter to spring transition, and then just run through laying out the next macro cycle, the spring-summer macro cycle. So in part 3, I recommended 3 areas that you could use in the winter to set yourself up for this year that we're now in. And they were strength training, getting your swim sorted, getting your run frequency up. I did all those in my winter. Went well. One of the things I found with my strength training was that it didn't solve all my problems. I had to bump my flexibility and mobility work to address some niggles that I had going on that we discussed last week in a pain-free return to running. With my swim, I built my body up to the point where I could handle 3 key workouts in the week, a longer endurance workout, a key masters workout, which is both long and fairly intense, and I try and be strong at the end of that in the second half. And then a third session, which is what I call strength and medley. It'll either be some paddle work or using fly to strengthen myself and work towards improving my open water swim capacity. So that all went well. Let's have a look at my performance management chart here. This is 6 months that I've got up in this picture for you. And what you can see is you can see my ramp at the end of the summer there, and then a consolidation period, another ramp, and that would be kind of late fall, early winter. And then as I lifted my strength training and challenged myself a little bit more in the pool, I didn't push load. I had to consolidate load again. And then as the strength training load came off, I had capacity to push load again. And that's really the last few weeks. And you can see I brought myself to a 6-month high in terms of my CTL, my chronic training load. And against that background, my thresholds were improving. So it's not necessarily like for like. Every point of training stress score is now more difficult. I have to do more work to get the point the way the model works because I'm getting more fit. You can also see those pink lines. You can see the waves of load with my 5-2 loading. So it goes up and down kind of each week. I'm cycling the load up and down on a weekly basis. And that's been a really consistent training progression for me. So I proved in my own mind, I had proof of concept in that I wanted to see if I could get back into shape. I was able to do it, and I did it through the plan that I had laid out in the last piece. The other thing I gathered across the last 2 months is I had a look at my aerobic threshold and submax benchmarks. And I've been sharing videos on how you could do that in your own training. And I do that primarily power on the bike, pace on the run. My swim, I tried some form goggles. I haven't got the fit quite right. So I haven't been able to use heart rate in the pool. But I have the benchmark swims that I track over time in the pool to see how I'm progressing there. Now, when we move on to planning the spring and the summer, my recommendation is you try and do one thing very well, your A goal. And you think about when you want to have that A goal. So where's it going to be in the calendar? And then you build the rest of the macro cycle with that in mind. And think about prior years. When are you the most fit in the calendar year? And try and match your natural peak with your desired peak. And if we slide back here, you can see my loads coming up. It's the end of February. Now, when I was an elite, I used to freshen up and race Ironman New Zealand in March and then take a break. Well, I don't have an Ironman or anything really planned right now. So I'm taking a break right now and doing a scheduled unload before I get into my next macro cycle. Now, I don't really need to. My metrics are green, but I know that if I keep pushing, there's no way I'm going to be able to push through the spring, through the summer. So this is a bit of a tactical unload that I'm doing right now. And that's something I would recommend you do with your season plan, is build in scheduled rest so that you give your body the ability to peak and you give yourself capacity to insert load when it most benefits your A race, your A goal. Just don't keep pushing until you've got, until you're kind of forced to rest. So from last time, we had year on a page, and I'll link that up in the comments in case you want to create your own. The other videos on smart season planning walked you through how to create it. And the colors are really just when I go down to sea level, when I drive more than 2 hours, if I get on a plane, if I cross more than 2 time zones, and if I'm sleeping up high. Those are things that I like to track because they're stress. Or stress reduction. Sleeping at sea level is great for me. So my A goal, I reached out to Colty and he agreed to pencil me in as a partner for Otilo. The way the winter went, I think I got a pretty good shot at getting through that. So my A goal is that race. It's a long day of swimming and running. And then what I also put in is my B and C races. So I'm heading over to Sweden with my son to do some sprint tries and some swim runs with him. And then we have a weekly stroke and stride series, which is a 1,500 meter swim with a 5K run. Now, the nice thing about putting those into my calendar is it takes the pressure off to do a whole lot of really fast training because I know I'm going to get these sea race stimulus. Now, normally a few of those you miss out because of lightning or an electrical storm. They're in the afternoon in Boulder, but I don't need to do all those. I just need to do a couple and it'll give me what I need. And then the rest of my program, I can focus on really just getting ready for a very long swim run day and doing that. Now, you'll see I put in a swim run camp at sea level, which gives me 2 weeks after the camp to kind of soak up the camp before I head over and do my races. Now, I'm racing with my son, who's going to be 12 years old then, so it's not particularly demanding for me, so I don't necessarily need to peak for it. I just did the swim run camp because it's something I can do with my wife, and it's going to be a fun trip for us to do together. But if you were aiming for an early season peak, that would probably be a good time to put a training camp in. 5-day training camp, kind of a long one for me. It'll be my first training camp, but it's swim focused, and I know I can tolerate a fair amount of swim volume without making myself too tired. Okay. These other camps that I haven't figured out what I'm going to do, but those are other spots relative to my A race where it would make sense for me to do a little bit of overload. Remembering to be careful with any running overload once you're getting close to the race within that 3-week window. Those will probably be more swim focused and possibly bike focused to get my overall endurance up. So that's how I'm laying out my spring and my summer, and it'll give you some ideas. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the comments or over on Twitter. Thanks.